My twin spent 3 months pretending to be me, maxed out credit cards in my name, left taunting notes after breaking in, then showed up with a lawyer demanding I owe her. So I pulled an Uno reverse in the most devastating way possible. My twin sister was better than me at everything, and she made sure we all knew it. It all started with a scoop of ice cream when we were 6 years old. I had chosen the rainbow sherbet, while she chose mint chocolate chip. Mine tasted like vomit that had been dipped in a toilet filled with diarrhea, and I threw it out straight away. Meanwhile, hers tasted amazing. "Good job!" our parents yelled. "We always knew you were the better twin." They laughed like it was a joke, but I knew it wasn't. Fast forward to 9th grade, when we had our first set of finals. Vanessa had gone on and on about how studying was a waste of time and she'll only be young once. Well, I was studying in my room at 2 a.m. when she burst through the door looking for a charger. As soon as she saw me in front of my open textbook, she froze and stood like a deer caught in headlights. "You're studying? What the F?" I just rolled my eyes and shut the door. Over the next few days, Vanessa was practically glued to the books. At first, I was happy for her, until the results came out. I didn't even have to ask what she got, because she came running up to me and waved the piece of paper in my face. "Haha, you fat bitch, I got an A+. Let me see what you got." I showed her my A and she bent over from how hard she was laughing. "I effing knew I was smarter than you." But the worst part came later, when we were all at the dinner table. My sister whipped out a laminated copy of her exam paper. My parents didn't even wait to ask me what I got before singing her praises. Meanwhile, our dad was beaming with pride. "I got an A," I whispered when the kitchen got a little quieter. "You need to start being more like Vanessa," my mom instantly responded. From there, I started to isolate myself from the family. I'd spend all my time at home with our black cat Midnight and culled any urge to talk to them. So by the time college applications came around, I was practically buzzing with excitement to finally move out. Vanessa was beside me when she got the email from her dream college. She was bouncing up and down on the chair faster than a trained window girl. There it was, in plain red Arial font. "Rejected." I could see the light in her eyes die out. After just 10 seconds of crying, she turned to me to ask a question. "Can you tell mom and dad that you accidentally deleted my acceptance email, and that's the reason I didn't go?" I sighed. "I don't know." "Thanks. You're the best," she interrupted. For the next few weeks, Vanessa was less mean to me than usual to thank me for the favor. We were sitting at the dinner table a few weeks later when I asked her to pass the carrots. "Why would I pass you anything, you conniving bitch?" she screamed. I slowly rubbed my temples, bracing myself for what was to come. Mom Daisy, my name, deleted my college acceptance email and I missed the deadline to accept. My mom's fork clattered on her ceramic plate. My dad spit out his Dasani water. "We always knew you were jealous of Vanessa, but we never thought you would take it this far," my dad said with full confidence. I didn't talk to them much after that because we couldn't even get through a full sentence without them bringing up the college email. And when I finished high school, moving out was a no-brainer. I never even bothered coming home for the holidays, and talking to my parents was too frustrating, so I didn't do that either. Instead, I'd just order them gifts on Amazon for their birthday and Christmas. And since Vanessa never went to college, I'd get her something too. Fast forward to 4 years later when I finished university. I invited them all to my graduation, and it was the first time I had seen them in years. I met them for photos after receiving my diploma. "That could have been Vanessa," was the first thing my mom said to me. I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Yeah, the diploma should be mine," Vanessa added. They then proceeded to take my graduation gown and cap and put it on Vanessa to take pictures of her instead. They were looking back at the photos I took when Vanessa noticed my finger covering the lens. "You always sabotage my success," she said. Something in me finally snapped. "Oh, sort of like when you got rejected from your dream college and let me take the fall?" My parents' jaw dropped. Vanessa's face went white. "What are you talking about?" She laughed, but it sounded forced. I looked straight at her. "Remember senior year? You asked me to pretend like I had deleted your acceptance email because you didn't want mom and dad to see you got rejected?" Mom was staring at Vanessa like she'd never seen her before. "Is this true?" she asked, voice shaking. Vanessa stammered, Well, not really, but kinda, I guess you could say." She was then cut off by my dad walking over and giving me a hug before whispering, "I'm sorry." I gently pushed him off me, grabbed my gown, and drove back to my dorm. Good riddance. The next day, I went to check my bank account to see if I could pay to get my graduation gown ironed, and that's when I saw it. My account had been drained on useless shy tea. $213 at the Container Store, $370 at Chuck E. Cheese. Anger boiled my blood. I instantly knew Vanessa was behind it. I scrolled through the transactions, each one making my stomach drop further. The dates went back 3 months. 3 whole months of her bleeding me dry while I was too busy with finals to notice. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone and called the bank. The representative put me on hold for what felt like hours. I paced around my tiny dorm room, stepping over graduation decorations I'd never gotten to use. When she finally came back, her voice was apologetic, but firm. They needed proof the transactions weren't authorized. Without it, I was stuck. I hung up and immediately started changing all my passwords. Amazon, Netflix, everything. Then it hit me. We'd shared an Amazon Prime account back in high school. She must have saved my card information from when I'd let her order something years ago. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "You embarrassed me at your graduation. Consider this payment for emotional damages." I screenshot it immediately. Then another text came through. "Mom and dad agree you owe me." My fingers flew across the keyboard, logging into my bank app to freeze all my cards. The damage was already done, but at least she couldn't take any more. I started a fraud report online, uploading the screenshot as evidence. Chuck E. Cheese. That transaction stood out like a sore thumb. Vanessa didn't have kids, and neither did any of our cousins. I called the location, pretending to be checking on a birthday party reservation. The manager was helpful, confirming they had security footage from that date. I drove there immediately. The manager, a tired-looking woman named Victi, pulled up the footage on her ancient computer. There was Vanessa, Vanessa, clear as day, using my card at the register. She was buying pizza and tokens with some friends I didn't recognize. Victi let me record the screen with my phone after I explained the situation. Back in my car, I checked my email. 3 new messages from my parents. I didn't even open them. I knew what they'd say. It was always the same story. Vanessa was the victim. I was the villain. My phone rang. Mom. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message. Daisy, you need to apologize to your sister. She's been crying all day. You've ruined her mental health with your lies. Call us back immediately. Another call came through. Dad this time. I declined it and blocked both their numbers temporarily. I needed space to think. The next morning, I woke up to pounding on my door. My roommate had already left for summer break, so I was alone. I checked through the peephole but saw nobody. When I opened the door, there was a pile of mail that had been shoved under. Credit card rejection letters. All addressed to me. All for cards I'd never applied for. My blood ran cold as I ripped them open. 5 different companies. All applications submitted in the last week. All using my social security number. I called each company, my voice getting more frantic with each conversation. 2 cards had actually been approved before the others caught the fraud. Both maxed out within days. Designer handbags, shoes, jewelry, thousands of dollars of debt in my name. I set up fraud alerts on all 3 credit bureaus, but the damage was spreading. While on hold with Experian, I opened Instagram. Vanessa had created a new account. Vanessa's Closet. Authentic designer goods. She was selling everything she'd bought with my stolen identity. I created a fake account and messaged her, pretending to be interested in a Louis Vuitton bag. She responded immediately with payment details and pickup information, her apartment address. Screenshots of everything went straight into my evidence folder. That afternoon, I heard voices in the hallway. Familiar voices. I looked through the peephole to see my parents and Vanessa walking toward my door. How did they even get into the building? They knocked, and I stayed silent, recording on my phone through the door crack. "We know you're in there," Mom called out. "The RA let us in. Open up." I cracked the door but kept the chain on. "What do you want?" Dad held up a folder. Vanessa's lawyer drew up some papers. "You just need to sign saying you authorized all the purchases." "Are you insane?" I couldn't help but laugh. Vanessa pushed forward. "Just sign the papers, Daisy. This is getting ridiculous." "You stole my identity. I didn't steal anything," she screamed. "You owe me. You've always had everything handed to you." "Handed to me? I worked for everything while I what? While I got rejected from college? While you rubbed your success in my face? I deserve compensation. I took what was mine." I kept recording, my phone hidden behind the door. Mom tried to calm her down, but Vanessa was on a roll. 4 years. 4 years you were gone living your perfect college life while I was stuck here. So yeah, I used your stupid card. You can afford it with your fancy degree. Vanessa! Dad tried to stop her, but she kept going. "What's a few $1,000s to Miss Perfect? You probably didn't even notice until now." I slowly closed the door in their faces and immediately saved the recording to 3 different cloud services. Their pounding and yelling continued for another 10 minutes before security finally showed up. That evening, I met with my friend Nicholas from law school. He'd graduated a year before me and was working at a small firm downtown. Over coffee, I showed him everything. "This is serious identity theft," he said, drafting cease and desist letters on his laptop. "You need to file police reports immediately." We spent the next 2 hours preparing documentation. Nicholas offered to represent me pro bono, furious that someone would do this to a friend. By the time we finished, I had a stack of official letters ready to send. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from my boss. My stomach dropped as I called him back. "Daisy, thank God. We got a call yesterday saying you were quitting effective immediately. I figured something was off since you just graduated, but HR was ready to process it." My hands trembled. "I never called. I'm not quitting. I figured as much." The person calling didn't sound professional at all. Kept ranting about how you didn't deserve the job. "Can you come in today to sort this out with HR?" I drove to the office in my pajamas, not even bothering to change. The HR manager, Klaus, pulled up the phone records. The call had come from Vanessa's cell number. She hadn't even tried to hide it. "We'll need you to file a formal complaint," Klaus said. "This is serious. Someone impersonating an employee to damage their career? We've never seen anything like this." I spent 3 hours in that office, filling out forms and giving statements. They assured me my job was safe, but I could see the concern in their eyes. What kind of family drama was I bringing to their company? On my drive home, my phone buzzed with a Facebook notification. My ex-boyfriend from sophomore year, Cole, had messaged me. "Hey, this is weird, but I think someone is pretending to be you on a dating app. They're asking really strange questions about your personal life. Thought you should know." My heart sank. I called him immediately. "Cole, what kind of questions?" "Like, really specific stuff about your routines, where you keep important documents, if you have any compromising photos from college." I knew it wasn't you because the grammar was all wrong. I explained the situation, and Cole agreed to play along to help me gather evidence. Within an hour, fake Daisy had sent him dozens of messages trying to dig up dirt for blackmail. That night, I installed a security camera in my dorm room and changed my locks. The building manager wasn't happy about it, but when I explained the situation, he made an exception. I also ordered a small safe for my important documents. 2 days later, I came back from grocery shopping to find my door slightly open. The new lock had been picked. Inside, my room was ransacked. Drawers pulled out, papers everywhere. My passport and birth certificate were gone from my desk drawer, but they'd missed the camera. I pulled up the footage on my phone. There was Vanessa, clear as day, using a key to enter. A key only my parents had. She spent 20 minutes going through everything, taking photos of my bank statements, stealing documents. She even left little notes around the room. "You can't hide from family," on my mirror. "Give up," on my laptop screen. I called the police immediately. Officer O. Victoria took my statement while her partner dusted for fingerprints. They were particularly interested in the security footage. "This is breaking and entering, theft, and identity fraud," she said. "With all this evidence, we can definitely move forward with charges." While waiting for the police report, I reached out to Vanessa's high school best friend Vita on Facebook. We'd been friendly back in the day, and she'd always seemed to see through Vanessa's act. Vita called me within minutes. "Oh my god, Daisy, I've been waiting for someone to finally stand up to her. She did this to her college roommate too. Stole her credit card and ran up charges, then convinced everyone the roommate was lying. Would you be willing to make a statement?" "Absolutely. I have text messages where she bragged about it. She thought it was hilarious." Over the next week, I built my case methodically. Bank records, security footage, witness statements, the recording of her confession. My lawyer friend Nicholas helped me organize everything into a comprehensive file. Then Vanessa made a mistake. She panicked. She called me from an unknown number, and I recorded the call. "Daisy, let's work this out. I'll return your documents and pay back some of the money if you drop everything." "Some of the money? I mean, I can't return the stuff I already sold, but I'll give you like half. That's fair, right? Fair? You stole my identity, Vanessa. You stole my life," she screamed. "You got to go to college, get a degree, move away. I was stuck here being compared to you every single day. That's not my fault." "Yes, it is. Everything is your fault. Mom and Dad only cared about your achievements. Daisy's doing so well in school. Daisy got another internship. What about me? You could have gone to community college, gotten a job, done something with your life instead of stealing mine." She hung up. The next day, my social media exploded. Vanessa had posted on every platform, tagging mutual friends, distant relatives, everyone. According to her posts, I was mentally unstable, had attacked her at graduation, was making up lies about theft because I was jealous of her. Some people believed her. I got messages asking if I was okay, suggesting therapy, wondering why I would make up such horrible accusations about my own sister. So I posted my own response. The security footage, the bank records, the screenshots, the credit reports, everything. The tide turned instantly. Comments poured in expressing shock, anger, disbelief that Vanessa could do something like this. Several people messaged me privately, sharing their own stories of her theft and manipulation. My phone rang. "Mom." I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Daisy." Her voice was small, broken. "We saw everything. The footage, the evidence. We didn't know. You didn't want to know. Can you come over, please? Your father and I, we need to talk to you, to apologize, to make this right." I drove to my childhood home for the first time in years. The house looked exactly the same, but somehow smaller. Mom opened the door with red-rimmed eyes. Dad sat at the kitchen table looking older than I remembered. The security footage played on loop on Dad's laptop. They'd watched it over and over, trying to understand how they'd missed this. "We failed you," Dad said simply. "We failed both of you, but especially you." Vanessa was there too, sitting in the corner like a scolded child. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Tell her," Mom said firmly. "Tell her everything." And Vanessa did. How the resentment had built over the years. How every achievement of mine felt like a personal attack. How she'd convinced herself she deserved compensation for her pain. How it started small, just a few Amazon purchases, then spiraled out of control. "I was so angry," she whispered. "You got to leave. You got to become someone new. I was stuck being the failure twin. You were never a failure," I said. "You chose to be. Every time you had an opportunity, you chose the easy way out. And when that didn't work, you chose to steal from me." The police reports were filed. The credit card companies launched their investigations. With all the evidence, my fraud claims were approved one by one. The money started returning to my account. Vanessa was charged with identity theft, breaking and entering, and fraud. Her lawyer negotiated a plea deal, community service and probation, mandated therapy. She had to pay restitution for everything she'd stolen. But more importantly, the truth was finally out. Family therapy started 3 weeks later. It was awkward, painful, full of tears and accusations. Years of favoritism, manipulation, and enabling behaviors were unpacked in that beige office. "I always thought I was helping," Mom admitted during one session. "I thought if I praised Vanessa more, she'd gain confidence. I didn't realize I was creating a monster and destroying another daughter in the process," the therapist added gently. Vanessa's individual therapy revealed deeper issues: anxiety, depression, a personality disorder that made her feel entitled to what others had. It didn't excuse her actions, but it explained them. Slowly, painfully, we rebuilt. Not the family we'd been, but something new. Something with boundaries, accountability, and truth. Vanessa got a job, started community college, began making her own life instead of trying to steal mine. I kept my distance at first, showing up for therapy, but nothing more. Trust, once shattered, takes time to rebuild. But gradually, I saw changes. Real changes. Vanessa apologizing without expecting forgiveness. My parents calling to ask about my life without comparing me to anyone. Family dinners where my achievements were celebrated instead of dismissed. It wasn't perfect. Some days were harder than others. Some relatives still believed I'd overreacted. Some friends chose sides. But for the first time in my life, I felt free. Free from the toxic dynamics that had defined my childhood. Free from the constant comparisons and manipulations. Free to be myself without apology or explanation. The girl who'd been told she was less than, who'd been blamed for her sister's failures, who'd had her success stolen and twisted, was finally standing in her own truth. And that truth had set us all free. The bank representative's voice crackled through my phone as I sat cross-legged on my dorm room floor, surrounded by printed statements and highlighted transactions. She explained the fraud investigation process while I furiously scribbled notes. The screenshot of Vanessa's confession text helped, but they needed more concrete evidence linking her to the unauthorized purchases. After hanging up, I methodically went through every transaction. The Container Store purchase happened during my organic chemistry final. Chuck E. Cheese was the day after my thesis presentation. Each charge coincided with moments when I'd been too overwhelmed to check my accounts. My laptop dinged with a new email notification. Another credit card rejection letter, this time forwarded digitally. My hands trembled as I opened it. Capital One, application submitted yesterday. Same social security number number, different address, Vanessa's apartment. I immediately called Capital One's fraud department. The representative confirmed 5 more applications had been submitted to various banks over the past week. My stomach churned as she listed them off. Some had been flagged as suspicious, but 2 had already been approved and cards expedited to Vanessa's address. While still on the phone, I logged into Credit Karma. My credit score had plummeted 150 points. Years of careful financial management destroyed in days. The representative walked me through placing fraud alerts, but warned that damage already done would take months to repair. My dorm room suddenly felt suffocating. I needed air, needed to think. Grabbing my evidence folder, I headed to the campus library. The walk cleared my head enough to formulate a plan. First, I needed to document everything meticulously. Second, I had to prevent further damage. Third, gather enough evidence to stop Vanessa permanently. The library was nearly empty, summer session meaning fewer students around. I commandeered a study room and spread out my materials, bank statements, screenshots, rejection letters. The pattern became clearer with everything laid out. Vanessa had been testing the waters for months with small Amazon purchases before escalating to the credit card fraud. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, then remembered I'd blocked my parents. Sure enough, Mom's voice filled my ear when I answered. Daisy, this is ridiculous. Your sister is distraught. She says you're making things up because you're jealous of her new business venture. New business venture? I couldn't hide my disbelief. She started selling designer goods online. Very entrepreneurial. Unlike someone who just throws accusations around. I hung up without responding. Opening Instagram, I searched for Vanessa's new account. There it was. Vanessa's Closet. Posted just hours ago were photos of designer handbags, shoes, and jewelry, all purchased with my stolen identity. The prices were marked up significantly from retail. Creating a fake account took minutes. I messaged about a Gucci bag, playing the part of an eager buyer. Vanessa responded almost immediately with payment instructions and pickup details. Her apartment address, cash only, available tomorrow afternoon. I screenshot everything. The next morning arrived with more chaos. My email inbox contained 3 more credit card rejections and 1 approval. Discover had somehow approved a card with a $5,000 limit despite the fraud alerts. I called them immediately, but the card had already been maxed out and closed within hours of approval. I drove to Chuck E. Cheese hoping to catch the manager, Victi, during a slow period. The restaurant smelled of pizza grease and industrial cleaner. Victi remembered me from my previous call and was surprisingly helpful. She pulled up the security footage on the ancient computer system, showing Vanessa clear as day using my debit card. Can I get a copy of this? I asked, trying to keep desperation out of my voice. Victi glanced around nervously. We're not supposed to, but she pulled out her phone. Record the screen. I'll pretend I didn't see. I thanked her profusely, making sure to capture Vanessa's face clearly in the footage. She was laughing with friends, swiping my card like it was nothing. The timestamp matched perfectly with my bank statement. Back in my car, I noticed several missed calls from an unknown number. The voicemail made my blood freeze. It was my boss. Daisy, we received a concerning call about you today. Please contact HR immediately. My hands shook as I called the HR department. Klaus answered on the second ring, his voice professional but concerned. Someone called claiming to be you, saying you needed to quit immediately due to mental health issues. The caller was quite graphic about your supposed breakdown. That wasn't me, I managed to say through gritted teeth. We figured as much. The caller kept ranting about how you didn't deserve the position. Can you come in to file a report? I drove straight to the office, not caring that I was wearing yesterday's clothes. Klaus had already pulled the phone records. The number belonged to Vanessa's cell phone. She hadn't even tried to mask it. This is serious harassment, Klaus said, typing up the incident report. We'll need documentation for our legal department. 3 hours later, I finally left the office with assurances my job was safe, but the damage to my professional reputation worried me. What if Vanessa contacted other potential employers? My phone buzzed with a Facebook message. Cole, my ex from sophomore year, had sent a screenshot. Someone using my photos had matched with him on a dating app, asking invasive questions about my college years. I called him immediately. What kind of questions? Where you lived, who your roommates were, if you had any embarrassing photos or stories. I knew it wasn't you because they kept calling me the wrong name. We devised a plan. Cole would play along, gathering evidence while I documented everything. Within hours, Fake Me had sent dozens of messages trying to extract blackmail material. The grammar was atrocious. Clearly Vanessa's writing style. That evening, I invested in security upgrades. A camera for my dorm room, new locks, a small safe for important documents. The building manager initially protested but relented after I explained the situation. I also changed every password I could think of, using a password manager to generate complex combinations. 2 days passed in relative quiet. I used the time to organize evidence, file police reports, and work with Nicholas on legal documentation. He'd drawn up cease and desist letters and helped me understand my options for pressing charges. Then I came home to find my door ajar. My new lock had been picked, the door frame showing fresh scratches. Inside, chaos. Drawers emptied, papers scattered, personal items rifled through. My passport and birth certificate, which I'd stupidly left in my desk drawer, were gone, but the camera had caught everything. I pulled up the footage on my phone, my anger building with each second. Vanessa entered using a key, one only my parents had. She spent 20 minutes ransacking my room, photographing financial documents, stealing identification papers. She even paused to leave notes. You can't escape family, taped to my mirror. Give up, stuck to my laptop. I called 911 immediately. Officer O. Victoria arrived within 30 minutes, her partner beginning to dust for fingerprints while she took my statement. This is breaking and entering, theft, and identity fraud, she said, watching the security footage. With evidence this clear, we can definitely press charges. While waiting for the police report, I remembered Vita, Vanessa's high school best friend. We'd been friendly enough, and she'd always seemed to see through Vanessa's manipulations. I found her on Facebook and sent a message. Her response came quickly. OMG Daisy, I've been waiting for someone to finally call her out. Can I call you? Within minutes, Vita was spilling years of witnessed manipulation. She did this to her freshman roommate too. Stole her credit card, ran up hundreds in charges, then convinced everyone the roommate was lying. I have screenshots of her bragging about it. Would you make an official statement? Absolutely. I'm tired of watching her hurt people. Over the following days, I built my case methodically. Bank records showing unauthorized transactions, security footage from multiple locations, witness statements from Vita and others who'd come forward, the recording of Vanessa's confession through my door. Nicholas helped organize everything into a comprehensive legal file. My phone rang constantly. Unknown numbers I assumed were my parents. I let them all go to voicemail, focusing on damage control. Each credit bureau now had extensive fraud alerts. My bank issued new cards with enhanced security. My employer documented the harassment for potential legal action. Then Vanessa panicked. The call came from an unknown number late one evening. I almost didn't answer, but something made me hit record first. Daisy, we need to talk. This has gone too far. You broke into my room, Vanessa. I was looking for something that belonged to me. What could possibly belong to you in my dorm room? She paused, clearly not expecting the question. Look, let's make a deal. I'll return your documents and pay back some of the money if you drop all this. Some of the money? I can't return what I already sold, but I'll give you half of what I made. That's fair. Fair? You stole my identity. You tried to get me fired. You're destroying my credit. You destroyed my life. Her composure cracked completely. You got everything. College, freedom, a future. I was stuck here being reminded every day that I wasn't you. So you decided to steal my life instead of building your own? I deserved compensation. 4 years of being compared to perfect Daisy. 4 years of, why can't you be more like your sister? You owe me. I owe you nothing. You made your choices. My choices? I didn't choose to be rejected from college. I didn't choose to be the failure twin. You chose to lie about it. You chose to blame me. You chose to steal from me instead of taking responsibility. She hung up, but I had everything recorded. The next morning, my social media exploded. Vanessa had posted across every platform, tagging mutual friends, distant relatives, everyone we'd ever known. According to her posts, I was mentally unstable, jealous of her success, making up elaborate lies because I couldn't handle her entrepreneurial achievements. Some people believed her. Messages poured in asking if I was okay, suggesting therapy, wondering why I would fabricate such accusations. Others who knew us better expressed doubt, but Vanessa had always been convincing. So I fought back with truth. I created a comprehensive post with evidence. The security footage of her breaking into my room, bank statements showing unauthorized charges, screenshots of her selling stolen goods, the credit reports showing fraudulent applications. Everything laid out chronologically and clearly. The response was immediate. Comments flooded in expressing shock, anger, disbelief. Several people messaged privately sharing their own experiences with Vanessa's theft and manipulation. Former classmates, co-workers, even extended family members she'd scammed over the years. My phone rang. Mom. I stared at the screen, debating. Finally, I answered. Daisy. Her voice sounded different, smaller. We saw your post, the video. Is all of this true? Every word. Your father and I, we need to see you. Please. Why? So you can tell me again how I'm ruining Vanessa's life? Numbers. So we can apologize. So we can try to understand how we failed you so badly. I drove to my childhood home the next day, my stomach in knots. The house looked exactly as I remembered, yet somehow diminished. Mom opened the door with red-rimmed eyes. Dad sat at the kitchen table, laptop open to my social media post. They'd watched the security footage dozens of times, trying to comprehend what they were seeing. Their golden child, breaking into my room, stealing from me, destroying my life out of spite. We gave her the key, Mom whispered. In case of emergencies, we never thought. Vanessa sat in the corner, no longer the confident manipulator. She looked small, deflated, caught. Tell her, Dad commanded. Tell her everything, now. And finally, the truth spilled out. How the resentment had festered for years. How every achievement of mine felt like a personal attack. How she'd convinced herself she deserved compensation. How it started with just one Amazon purchase, then spiraled into full identity theft. I hated you, she admitted. You got to leave. You got to become someone. I was stuck here being nothing. You weren't nothing. You chose to do nothing. There's a difference. Easy for you to say. You had grades, acceptance letters, a future. Because I worked for them. While you were partying, I was studying. While you were making excuses, I was making plans. You could have done the same. With everyone comparing me to you, why can't you be more like Daisy? Daisy would never do that. Look how well Daisy's doing. I couldn't escape you, so you tried to become me instead? The room fell silent. Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Years of pain couldn't be erased with one conversation. The next weeks blurred together. Police reports were filed. Credit card companies investigated with my evidence. Slowly, fraudulent charges were reversed. Stolen funds returned. But the damage to my credit would take months to repair. Vanessa was formally charged with identity theft, breaking and entering, and fraud. Her lawyer negotiated a plea deal, community service, probation, mandated therapy, and restitution for everything stolen. She avoided jail time, barely. Family therapy began 3 weeks later. The therapist, a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Martinez, guided us through years of dysfunction. The favoritism I'd always felt was validated. The enabling of Vanessa's behavior examined. The deep fractures in our family foundation exposed. I thought I was helping. Mom broke down during one session. Vanessa seemed so fragile compared to Daisy. I thought if I praised her more, she'd gain confidence. Instead, you created entitlement, Dr. Martinez observed gently, and made Daisy feel unseen. Vanessa's individual therapy revealed deeper issues. Anxiety, depression, possible personality disorder. It didn't excuse her actions but provided context. She'd spent years constructing a victim narrative to avoid accountability. Slowly, painfully, Slowly, we began rebuilding. Not the family we'd been, that was gone forever, but something new, with boundaries and accountability. Vanessa got a job at a retail store, enrolled in community college, started building her own life instead of trying to steal mine. I kept my distance initially, showing up for therapy but maintaining boundaries. Trust, once shattered, takes time to rebuild. But gradually, I saw changes. Real changes. Vanessa apologizing without expecting immediate forgiveness. My parents calling to ask about my life without comparisons. Family dinners where my achievements were celebrated instead of dismissed. Some relatives still believed I'd overreacted. Some friends chose sides. The path forward wasn't smooth, but for the first time in my life, I felt free. Free from toxic dynamics that had defined my childhood. Free from constant comparisons and manipulations. Free to be myself without apology or explanation. The girl who'd been told she was less than, who'd been blamed for her sister's failures, who'd had her success stolen and twisted, was finally standing in her own truth. And that truth had set us all free. The courthouse steps stretched before me like a mountain. I clutched my evidence binder, watching Vanessa and her lawyer huddle near the entrance. Mom and Dad stood awkwardly between us, their faces drawn with exhaustion from weeks of depositions and hearings. Inside, the prosecutor laid out the case methodically. Security footage played on the courtroom screen. Vanessa's break-in, her ransacking my room, stealing my documents. The judge's expression hardened with each piece of evidence. Bank records showing months of unauthorized transactions. Credit reports displaying fraudulent applications. Screenshots of her selling stolen goods online. Vanessa's lawyer tried damage control, painting her as a troubled young woman who'd made mistakes. The prosecutor countered with Vita's testimony about previous victims. Cole's evidence of the catfishing scheme. Klaus from HR detailing the impersonation attempt. Officer O. Victoria presenting the formal charges. During recess, I found myself in the bathroom splashing cold water on my face. Vanessa entered behind me, her reflection appearing in the mirror. We stood there, twin faces showing different lives. Mine tired but determined, hers desperate and cornered. She opened her mouth to speak, but her lawyer appeared, pulling her away with sharp whispers about not talking to the victim. I dried my hands slowly, watching them leave. Back in court, Vanessa took the stand. Her voice cracked as she admitted to everything. The stolen bank information, the credit card fraud, breaking into my room, trying to get me fired, the catfishing, years of resentment spilling out in halting sentences. The judge's verdict came swift and harsh, guilty on all counts. Identity theft, breaking and entering, fraud, harassment. The sentencing would come later, but the conviction stood. Vanessa's shoulders shook as the bailiff read the charges. Outside the courthouse, reporters had gathered. Someone had tipped them off about the twin sister identity theft case. I pushed through with Nicholas's help, ignoring their questions. Mom and Dad followed behind, shielding their faces from cameras. The next morning brought new chaos. My phone exploded with notifications. The local news had run the story. Twin sister steals identity in elaborate fraud scheme. My face, pulled from social media, stared back from news websites. Vanessa's mugshot beside it. I turned off my phone and focused on damage control. The credit bureaus needed updated documentation. My bank required additional paperwork. Each company that had issued fraudulent cards wanted their own forms completed. Hours spent on hold, explaining the situation repeatedly. Nicholas helped draft a statement for my employer, ensuring they understood I was the victim, not the perpetrator. Klaus from HR called personally, assuring me my position remained secure. But I could hear the concern in his voice. This kind of publicity wasn't good for anyone. 3 days later, Vanessa's sentencing arrived. 2 years probation, 200 hours community service, mandatory therapy, full restitution. No jail time, thanks to her lawyer's plea deal. I sat in the gallery watching her receive the verdict. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of consequences. After court, Mom approached me in the parking lot, her hands twisted together nervously as she spoke about family therapy, about healing, about moving forward. I listened without committing, my car keys heavy in my hand. The restitution checks started arriving within weeks. Small amounts at first, then larger sums as Vanessa sold her car, emptied her savings. Each payment came with a note from her lawyer confirming the amount. Cold, legal language for years of betrayal. I used the money to pay off the fraudulent charges, repair my credit, cover legal fees. The rest went into savings, a buffer against future chaos. My credit score slowly climbed back up, each point a small victory. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into projects, staying late to avoid thinking about family drama. My colleagues knew something had happened but respected my privacy. Only occasionally did someone mention seeing the news story, quickly changing the subject at my expression. One evening, Cole texted me screenshots. Vanessa had created new social media accounts under fake names. She was posting about being a victim of the justice system, claiming I'd set her up. The posts gained little traction, most people recognizing her from the news coverage. I documented everything and sent it to Nicholas. He forwarded it to Vanessa's probation officer. Within days, the accounts disappeared. A warning had been issued. Any further harassment would violate her probation terms. Mom called weekly, leaving voicemails I rarely returned. Each message sounded more desperate. Updates about therapy, about Vanessa's progress, about Dad's health. The stress had triggered his blood pressure issues. I felt the familiar pull of guilt, but pushed it away. 6 weeks into Vanessa's probation, I received an unexpected package. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Inside, my passport and birth certificate. A sticky note attached, "I'm sorry, nothing more." I had the documents authenticated, ensuring they weren't forgeries. The officer at the passport agency looked at me strangely when I explained why I needed verification. Another small humiliation in a series of many. My apartment lease ended 2 months later. I found a new place across town, somewhere Vanessa didn't know the address. The moving company arrived early, packing my life into boxes. I left no forwarding address with the building management. The first night in my new apartment, I sat on the floor eating takeout. Boxes towered around me, each one a fresh start. My phone buzzed with texts from Mom, asking if I was okay, if I needed help. I turned it off and focused on unpacking. Work offered a promotion the following week, a new position with more responsibility, better pay. My boss mentioned they'd been impressed with how I'd handled the recent challenges. Professional code for surviving a public scandal. I accepted immediately. Vanessa's community service assignment came through the court system. She'd be working at a local thrift store, sorting donations. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The girl who'd stolen designer goods to sell online now handling other people's cast-offs. I drove past the thrift store once, curiosity getting the better of me. Through the window, I saw her folding clothes, her supervisor watching closely. She looked up as my car passed, our eyes meeting for a brief moment. I didn't slow down. Mom's calls became less frequent but more emotional. She left a voicemail about Vanessa's therapy breakthrough, how she'd finally acknowledged the pain she'd caused, how the therapist said family healing could begin. I deleted it without listening to the end. My credit monitoring alerts became routine. Each month, checking for new fraudulent activity. Each month, finding none. Slowly, the hypervigilance faded. I stopped checking daily, then weekly. Progress measured in small freedoms. Nicholas invited me to his firm's holiday party. I almost declined, then forced myself to go. Normalcy had to start somewhere. I made small talk with his colleagues, avoided questions about family, focused on work discussions. Several people mentioned they'd followed the case, impressed by how I'd handled it. On the way home, I passed my childhood neighborhood. Christmas lights twinkled from familiar houses. I wondered if Mom had decorated this year, if Dad was helping despite his health, if Vanessa was there, or serving community service hours. My new apartment remained undecorated. I'd bought a small tree but hadn't assembled it. Work consumed most days, leaving little energy for holiday spirit. I ordered gifts online for friends, skipping family entirely. The cart sat abandoned when I reached my parents' names. Vanessa's restitution payments continued arriving, each check a reminder of everything that had happened. I set up automatic deposit, removing the need to see her lawyer's letterhead monthly. The balance grew slowly, replacing what had been stolen. A text from Vita arrived unexpectedly. She'd run into Vanessa at the grocery store. Awkward pleasantries exchanged before Vanessa hurried away. Vita mentioned she looked healthier, less angry. I thanked her for the update and changed the subject. My boss called me into his office one morning. A new project required someone with attention to detail, someone who could handle sensitive information. The recent situation had proven my reliability. I accepted, grateful for the trust despite everything. The project consumed weeks, long hours documenting processes, securing confidential data. I threw myself into it completely, finding peace in the structure and clarity. No family drama, no emotional manipulation, just clean, clear work. One evening, organizing files late at the office, security called. Someone was in the lobby asking for me. My blood ran cold until they clarified it was an older man, Dad. I asked them to tell him I'd already left. He called from the lobby, his voice tired and old, just wanted to talk, to see how I was doing, to apologize again, to update me on Mom's health now too, the stress affecting them both. I listened but didn't respond, ending the call with vague promises to be in touch. The security footage from that night showed him waiting another hour before leaving, shoulders slumped, moving slowly. I watched it the next morning, feeling nothing but exhaustion. The anger had faded into empty space. Vanessa's probation officer contacted me about victim impact statements for her file. I spent days crafting one, trying to capture the destruction she'd caused. Financial damage was easy to quantify. The emotional toll, harder to articulate. I submitted it without reading the final version. Spring arrived with its false promises of renewal. I focused on work, on rebuilding credit, on creating distance. The promotion brought new challenges that filled my days. Weekends meant errands and meal prep, not family dinners or drama. A wedding invitation arrived from a college friend. +1, it said. I RSVP'd for one. No explanation needed. The date approached with relief that I wouldn't face questions about bringing family. Those bridges thoroughly burned. At the wedding, during the parent dances, I stepped outside. The cool air helped calm the unexpected wave of loss. Not for what was, but what could have been. A family that celebrated achievements instead of stealing them. Parents who saw both daughters clearly. I returned inside as cake was served, plastering on appropriate smiles. The bride's family seemed so normal, so functional. Her sister gave a loving toast without a hint of resentment. I wondered if they knew how lucky they were. Monday brought me back to routine. Work, home, repeat. Stable and predictable. My credit score had recovered significantly. The promotion provided financial security. My new apartment felt like home. Small victories building a life separate from the chaos. Vanessa completed her community service early. According to court records I'd checked online. Her probation continued, but the mandatory hours were done. I wondered what she'd do now, then pushed the thought away. Not my concern anymore. Mom sent a letter to my office knowing I'd moved. Handwritten pages about family therapy, about understanding their failures, about hoping for reconciliation, about Vanessa's genuine progress, about missing me. I filed it with other documentation. Unanswered. The 1-year anniversary of the courthouse verdict passed quietly. I worked late, ordered dinner, watched mindless TV. No acknowledgement of the date beyond a brief moment of reflection. How much had changed, how much I'd rebuilt, how far I'd come. Nicholas called with updates on the legal side. All restitution on track. No probation violations. The system working as intended. He mentioned Vanessa had inquired about early termination of probation for good behavior. Standard procedure, likely to be denied. I thanked him and ended the call, returning to my spreadsheets. The numbers made sense in ways family never had. Clean columns of data without hidden meanings or manipulation. Just facts and figures building toward clear goals. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. A photo of Vanessa's community college graduation announcement. 2 years late, but finally happening. I blocked the number without responding. ending. Some bridges couldn't be rebuilt, no matter how much time passed. The summer brought a job offer from a competitor. Better salary, new city, fresh start. I spent weeks considering it. The distance appealed more than the money. A place where nobody knew about the twin sister who'd stolen my identity. I accepted the position, giving generous notice. My current employer countered, but I'd already decided. Time for complete separation. My colleagues threw a small farewell party, careful not to mention why starting fresh might appeal. Packing felt different this time. Not running, but choosing. Each box labeled for a future I controlled. The moving truck scheduled, flights booked, new apartment secured, everything arranged without input or interference from family. My last week in town, I drove past the childhood home one final time. Mom's car in the driveway. Dad's garden overgrown. Vanessa's old car gone, sold for restitution. I didn't slow down, didn't feel the pull to stop, just acknowledgement of what was left behind. The moving truck arrived on schedule. Professional movers who didn't ask personal questions. Box after box loaded while I supervised. My entire life fitting into one vehicle. Freedom measured in cubic feet of space. I left the city as the sun set, flying toward my new position. Below, the lights of my old life grew smaller until they disappeared entirely. Somewhere down there, my family continued their therapy, their healing, their journey, without me. The new city welcomed me with rain and traffic. My apartment building stood modern and impersonal. Perfect. I directed movers, unpacked essentials, ordered dinner from a place that didn't know my usual order. Everything fresh and unfamiliar. Work started the following Monday. New faces, new challenges, new opportunities. HR processed my paperwork without mentioning background checks or news stories. A clean slate professionally and personally. I dove into training with relief. Weeks passed in adjustment. Learning bus routes and coffee shops. Finding a grocery store and gym. Building routines that belonged only to me. My phone stayed quiet, the old number disconnected. Only work contacts had the new one. One evening, unpacking the last boxes, I found the family photos I'd kept. Childhood birthdays before everything soured. Graduation pictures before the theft. I looked at them without anger or sadness, just acknowledgement of a different time. I stored them in a closet, not ready to display but unable to discard. Maybe someday they'd mean something different. For now, they remained archived proof of a life left behind. Evidence that I'd survived and rebuilt. My new colleague invited me for drinks after work. I accepted, making small talk about the job and city. When asked about family, I mentioned being an only child. The lie came easily, creating boundaries from the start. She didn't push, moving to safer topics. The apartment slowly became home. Furniture delivered, art hung, kitchen stocked. Each choice mine alone without consideration for others' opinions. I painted an accent wall deep blue because I wanted to. Freedom in small decisions. Work consumed most energy, but weekends brought exploration. Museums and parks discovered solo. Restaurants tried without worrying about anyone else's preferences. A life built on my own terms, my own choices, my own peace. 6 months into the new position, I received a forwarded letter from Nicholas. Official notice that Vanessa's probation had ended successfully. All restitution paid, requirements met. The legal chapter closed. I shredded it without ceremony. The seasons changed, bringing new projects and responsibilities. I excelled at work, earning recognition without family drama overshadowing achievements. Colleagues knew me only as competent and reliable, the past irrelevant to present success. A year after moving, I finally felt settled, roots growing in soil I'd chosen, friends made through work and hobbies, a life full without the chaos that had defined so many years. The girl who'd been compared and found wanting had built something entirely her own. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered about them. If mom's health had improved, if dad still gardened, if Vanessa had truly changed or simply learned to hide better. But morning always brought focus back to my own life, my own future. The freedom felt strange still. No longer checking credit reports obsessively. No longer jumping at unknown calls. No longer carrying the weight of family dysfunction. Just forward momentum toward goals I set myself. I'd lost a family but gained myself. The trade felt worth it most days. Some bridges burned to light the way forward. Some stories ended not with reconciliation, but with recognition that distance brought its own healing. The woman typing reports in her corner office bore little resemblance to the girl who'd been blamed for her sister's failures. Evolution through destruction and rebuilding. Phoenix references felt too dramatic for the quiet satisfaction of a life reclaimed. My story had diverged from theirs completely. No shared chapters remaining. Just the echo of what was and the reality of what is. A successful career, stable finances, peaceful existence. Everything they'd said I'd stolen from Vanessa, I'd built for myself. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd tried to steal my life and instead freed me from theirs. The ultimate unintended consequence. Her actions had severed ties I'd never have cut myself. Forced liberation through betrayal. I closed my laptop, another productive day complete. Tomorrow brought new challenges unrelated to family drama. The past truly past, the future truly mine. No looking back, no regrets, no reconciliation needed. Just forward. Always forward. Into a life defined by my choices alone.